Canada, which means I'm on Canada's West Coast, and I'm starting this session at exactly 7 a.m. So good morning, everyone. So again, my session today will be about my top 10 tips to help you decide between Dynamics 365 for marketing and ClickDimensions. So those are the two kind of marketing automation powerhouses into the Dynamics 365 overall ecosystem. And we're getting in the last, I would say, 2 years, a few questions about which one is better, which one is right for me type of questions. So first, I think my monitor. Can you see my screen, or do you see some type of
yes, we can see your screen now. That's great. Thanks.
Okay, because what I see right now is that my PowerPoint is kind of broken. I see basically like a bunch of square on my screen.
Yeah, we can see. We can definitely see your slides. If it makes you feel better, Vicky, do you want to disconnect and reconnect?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Wait, let me try to replay. Perfect. Now it's back on.
Great.
So basically, just a little more about me. Again, I'm based in Vancouver. I'm an independent Microsoft Dynamics 365 consultant. I'm a Dynamics community moderator as well. I'm also the person behind MS Dynamics Certified. And I am 13 times Microsoft Dynamics 365 certified and 8 times ClickDimensions certified as well. So I do know a few things about this ecosystem. So again, for today's agenda, we're going to cover, first of all, why Dynamics 365 marketing may be right for you. And we are also going to cover why ClickDimensions may be better for you, because there is no better solution. It really depends on your own individual circumstances. And then I do always leave time at the end for plenty of times for questions, because I know that especially when I'm on a call, questions tend to go a little sideways. And because I'm Canadian, I will actually answer everything. So first, we're going to cover five reasons why Dynamics 365 for marketing might be better for you. So those are signs that maybe you should go that way and have a look at it. So the first thing is, I guess this is kind of obvious, but it needs to be stated anyway, which is the fact that Dynamics 365 marketing is actually made by Microsoft, which is a deal breaker for some people. So just to give you a little bit of background about Dynamics 365 for marketing, it was launched in March 2018, which is 2 years and 4 months ago. And it was after years and years and years and years of demand by the community. I mean, even when I started to build my career on the Dynamics 365 ecosystem, I've heard demands like that, and it took quite some time, but better late than never, I guess. The other big advantage is that because, again, it is a first-party application, you can be 100% sure 100% of the time that you're going to have an instant and seamless integration with other Dynamics 365 applications, including Dynamics 365 for Sales and the Power Platform, and as well as other Microsoft applications such as Outlook, Word, Excel, name your favorite Microsoft product here. The other thing is that, again, depending on your situation, Microsoft offers a not-for-profit discount program that you can take advantage of. So I know, for example, that some nonprofits are able to get up to 75% off their Dynamics 365 licensing fee, at least in North America. If you are somewhere else in the world right now, this might be different in your region. So I would highly recommend you, if you are in that situation, to contact whoever is your account manager at Microsoft or even at your Microsoft partner and see if that is something that you could take advantage of. Another big advantage of Dynamics 365 for marketing is how flexible and how customizable it is. First things first, the great thing about Dynamics 365 for marketing is that you have significantly easier integration with content management systems, especially the Adobe Marketing Cloud, if you have enterprise level needs in that aspect. And you also have a much easier integration with Dynamics 365 portals and the Power Apps portals. In fact, when you start looking at marketing pages or you start looking into event pages, those are built with Dynamics 365 portals technology and do integrate quite seamlessly. Another thing is that you have so many settings that I could do an entire presentation just talking about all the configurable settings in Dynamics 365 for marketing. So those include, and this is by no way a complete list, this is not even 10% of it. You're going to have goals, fiscal years, document templates, privacy banners, lead matching settings, and so many things that, again, I could spend the whole hour talking about that alone. And the other thing is that, especially when you compare it to ClickDimensions specifically, you are going to have a lot more customization options. So here, Dynamics 365 marketing is able to support Power Automate, able to support Power Apps quite well, able to support Power BI, again, quite well as well, able to support plugins, able to support workflows, able to support any customization that you would be able to do with Dynamics 365 for sales, you can pretty much do with Dynamics 365 for marketing as well. Another thing that is great with Dynamics 365 marketing, and this is something that I've played around with a little bit, is how ridiculously specific you can get in terms of segments. Now, if you look at prior to Dynamics 365 for marketing, or even on the ClickDimensions side here, you can have a marketing list, which can get very, very specific. However, what happens is that, let's say that you have a marketing list of, let's say, everybody in your contact who is part of a business who operates in, let's say, British Columbia, but you only want to include people that are responsible for the province of British Columbia. So for example, if you look at very large enterprises, let's say that you were to target Microsoft, they do have operations in British Columbia. In fact, they have 2 very large offices in downtown Vancouver, but you might want to target people that are responsible for sales in British Columbia. Now, that person might be sitting in Toronto, that person might be sitting in Vancouver, that person might even be sitting in Calgary. However, what happened with marketing lists, and this is a problem that I personally encountered, was that I could not go to that level of granular detail. So the great thing is that here you can have demographic segments, which are based out of contact information. So that is related, again, to the contact entity. You also have firmographic segments, which are based on the account or the company that the contact is working for, as well as a big advantage here, again, especially if you compare to ClickDimensions, which is behavioral segments. So what a behavioral segment does is that you can target people based on how they've interacted with your organization. So for example, you can target people who are opening your email more than 50% of the time. You can target people who visited a particular page on your website. You can target people who are part of the customer journey, and you can really, really go crazy here in terms of how, again, detailed you can go. And the other thing which is not, again, available, which I talked a little bit about, which is compound audiences. So you can combine multiple segments together, and you can really use logic. So when you think about a Venn diagram, you can use things like exclude. So for example, say I want everybody in segment A, but exclude everybody who would qualify under segment B. You could also say, I want someone who would qualify to be both in segment A and segment B, or you can even go, say, I want everybody who would qualify to be under segment A and segment B. So you can really, really have fun, and sky's pretty much the limit here. Next up, we have the event management capabilities with Dynamics 365 marketing. Now, what happened is I worked with a not-for-profit client who is eligible for the not-for-profit discount program here, and they were using a combination of Cvent, ClickDimensions, Dynamics 365 sales. Now, what happened was they are an organization that has a lot of in-person events, and a lot of them now have moved online. And the great thing about the event management capabilities is that if you are using a tool such as Cvent, Eventbrite, or other similar event management solution, and that for you, one of your biggest pain points in your organization is how on earth am I going to bring the people who attended my my event, whether in person, online, or mix of both, now bring them into my Dynamics instance so that I can eventually nurture leads or do campaigns or other things of that sort. And even for an organization that has these types of events, I am not joking, unless you have a developer that is willing to build you a custom solution, which costs tens of thousands of dollars, it would take you, I'm not joking, about a summer worth of interns in order for you to bring over that data manually, which I've seen happening, and there is a better way than basically taking an intern's time for an entire summer to do that. If you are someone that wants to do webinars, which is super popular right now, the only webinar software right now which is currently supported is On24. Personally, I would say that this is a weakness because many organizations had issues with On24, myself included. In fact, I've discovered bugs in it when playing with it. So if you are someone who's loyal to WebEx, you're loyal to another webinar platform, this is definitely something to consider. Next up, this is a case of why did Microsoft pay $26 billion to buy LinkedIn? That's one of the reasons why. So here, because Microsoft owns LinkedIn, they've really kind of pushed the needle in terms of having really, really deep integration with all the Dynamics product family. And that goes for Dynamics 365 for marketing. So here, who should care about having a LinkedIn integration? Number one is you're a business-to-business company, and a lot of your marketing effort is LinkedIn related. So for example, if you are in, let's say, organization like a Microsoft partner, and you are targeting small to medium-sized businesses that are growing quickly and that are currently using, let's say, a small software that they are probably have outgrown several months or even years ago, probably that you would care about this to find the people and the companies that would be in your target audience. Or another example is not just for business to business, but rather, let's say, a business to consumer company that would target professionals. So for example, if you are a company that sells business formal clothing, for example, if you are Indochino or Banana Republic or Everlane in North America, and if you're from Europe, I'm sorry, I don't know what the equivalent is. But they're basically like a shop where you go and you buy like your work clothing, basically. This would also be important because if you see that someone matches the profile of somebody that is, let's say, just graduated and got a job at a big city firm, or someone who might be due for a promotion and say, hey, like if you dress better, you might get that promotion, or that type of stuff, then this is who should care about the LinkedIn integration. So what's actually included in it? First things first is you can have LinkedIn campaigns directly in your customer journey. So the way that it works is quite straightforward. It works like any other tile in a customer journey, whether that's an email, a marketing page, or timers or anything. It works like any other tile, which is great. And you can basically use it to show advertisements on LinkedIn to people who are part of your customer journey if you have their LinkedIn profile information. The other great feature is we have LinkedIn matched audiences. So here, basically what happens is you have a segment of people that you create via the segment. Now, what happens is that with matched audiences, you can look for people on LinkedIn that meet your segment criteria. So let's say that you are targeting, let's say in the case of a business clothing shop, let's say you're doing a campaign right now to target business professionals who just graduated from university. So here you would probably create a segment saying, okay, I want contacts, I want people with a graduation year of 2020, and I want people who have an active job on LinkedIn to target to basically advertise suits or something. You would be able to have a LinkedIn match audiences, match it to a segment, and if the person would then end up in your Dynamics 365 instance, either through subscribing to your email newsletter or through going with a LinkedIn lead generation form, then that person would be matched to that particular segment automatically when their data is brought into Dynamics 365 for marketing. Now, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, which was 5 seconds ago, which is the lead generation with LinkedIn lead gen form. So basically, LinkedIn has built-in landing page, which are called LinkedIn lead generation form, and they work pretty much in an identical fashion compared to what you would be able to do in a traditional Dynamics 365 marketing page. So you can get their name, their phone number, emails, etc., etc., etc. Now, we're going to move over to ClickDimensions and 5 indicators why ClickDimensions might be right for you. Again, this really is a case-by-case basis, which is why I'm leaving, again, a lot of time for questions because I know that I'm going to get a lot of what about this, what about that. Next up, so here ClickDimensions is really a mature and a stable product. So just to give you a little bit of background about ClickDimensions, they are a company based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US. And the great thing about them specifically is that they've had 10 years of experience building marketing automation tool exclusively for Dynamics 365. So they don't do Salesforce, they don't do HubSpot, they don't do any of that. They are solely dedicated to the Dynamics 365 ecosystem. And they were sort of the first company to really bring a marketing automation solution. And in fact, they kind of almost had a monopoly until the Dynamics 365 marketing solution came to market. The great thing is because they've been in business for so long, unlike Dynamics 365 marketing that you can sometimes find a lot of random bugs with, which I've personally found quite a few, I've personally only encountered one bug in 3 years. And I can tell you what the bug is because it was quite noteworthy actually. So what happened was that there was an issue in terms of the Azure service that ClickDimensions uses, which basically created a global problem with ClickDimensions that was global across all users. And that was the bug in question. To be completely honest with you, if you do encounter a bug with ClickDimensions, either that you're doing something completely crazy that I'm not aware is possible and that you're basically breaking the solution almost, or that you're just unfortunately extremely unlucky because this stuff never breaks, or actually almost never breaks. The next point here is a personal favorite of mine, simply because I've seen it in action quite a lot. Actually, by the way, just a full disclaimer, which is currently in bold and underlined, because it is quite important, is this point only applies if you plan to make little to no customizations, which means if you are an organization that you see ClickDimensions and you're like, hey, this would be such a huge step up compared to what we have, which is probably a mix of spreadsheet and MailChimp or Constant Contact or something of that sort, or that you see the ClickDimensions feature and you say, okay, this meets 99% of what I need. I don't need to customize it, or if I do, barely. I've personally helped clients go live with ClickDimensions in 6 weeks. So what happened is, in that particular client, Dynamics 365 for Sales was their phase one of their project, if you will, which means that they've just gone live with the whole Dynamics 365 ecosystem. And then we moved on to phase two, which was the implementation of ClickDimensions. I kid you not, from the moment we started to work on this project to the moment it went live, it only took 6 weeks. And a lot of the time was spent to actually trying to recreate marketing collateral that was in their legacy solution, to migrate that over to the ClickDimensions solution, as well as training. There was no need to have complex configuration or anything super crazy. So for example, a lot of the configuration that we had to do was to set up their website, set up their CNAME, which is basically their domain name, set up their web tracking script to get website analytics in terms of who is coming to their website. And we discovered that one of their biggest leads that they wanted to gain a particular customer for quite some time has been visiting their website on a regular basis. And this is a piece of information that they did not have prior to going live with ClickDimensions. Another great thing about that is how user-friendly ClickDimensions is. So when I've trained people on ClickDimensions, they were like, okay, this is super easy to use. I know where everything is. And worst case, I'll probably be able to figure it out on my own, because everything is kind of is very intuitive, and that's the main feedback I got from a lot of the training sessions I've done on ClickDimensions. And the great thing is, in terms of business-to-business solutions that I've personally dealt with, ClickDimensions wins hands down without even a close contest in terms of the best customer service team. They are super helpful. They are really, really nice people. They answer super quickly. And honestly, like, they should win awards in terms of their customer service. It is that amazing. So if you are someone who's currently implementing customer service and you are looking for somebody that you should model your customer service after, you should probably look out to ClickDimensions, because honestly, like, they are doing such an awesome job. They should get a medal for it or something. Next up, we have social media. So as per the new releases of Dynamics 365 marketing, this may change in a few months, depending on what happens. But if you were to go live right now, I would say that ClickDimensions really wins on that point, because again, this is probably very Canadian specific, but that product is being exported all over the world. So in Canada, especially in Vancouver, because it's actually, the office is 20 minutes walk from my house, there's a really popular Vancouver startup which is called Hootsuite. And what they're famous for is to be a social media management software. So, for example, a lot of organizations that have presence on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., they can have a one-stop shop view of their whole social media analytics, and they can manage posts and manage engagement all within Hootsuite. And ClickDimensions has some of that capability that basically Hootsuite offers, but it's only limited to 3 social media, which are Facebook, Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. If you have, let's say, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, unfortunately, you would need to customize, or you would need to even use another tool, unfortunately. And like Hootsuite or like other world-class social media management tool, you can get post scheduling. You can get a lot of social media analytics, which is a lot more than what your Facebook or your Twitter analytics would show. And the other thing, which is kind of unique and stands out, is that you can find advocates. So for example, let's say you are the Microsoft team or the ClickDimensions team, and you are looking for people who talk about you in a positive way on social media, people that are sort of positive influencers, if you will. You can find those people, and then you can potentially even reach out to them and say, hey, thank you for being such a great customer, or thank you for being such a great advocate, and you can, send them treats and stuff. Next up here is the business intelligence features, which are actually quite new. So just to give you a little bit of background, ClickDimensions purchased a New York-based company, which is called SweetSpot, in the spring of 2019. And what SweetSpot brought over into the ClickDimensions product is the equivalent of the skills of 7 professionals, which includes a data analyst, a data scientist, a marketing professional, et cetera, to create a crazy suite of KPIs, which if you wanted to get in Dynamics 365 for marketing, you would need to probably have your marketing team work on a Power BI project. So for example, as part of your solution, you would be able to get a churn rate. So if you are a subscription-based organization, an example of that would be, for example, food box companies such as HelloFresh or Blue Apron in the US, or Good Food if you're Canadian, or other kind of subscription products. And they would bring you 170 plus KPIs and 13 dashboards. Again, if you wanted this in Dynamics 365 for marketing, you would need Power BI, and you would need people that know Power BI and know how to build that. And something which is unique, and that one customer that I have in mind dreamed of when they went live with ClickDimensions in 2018, I believe, was the integration with Google Analytics. And to give you a little bit of background of why that is so awesome, is the fact that pre-integration via the SweetSpot acquisition, there were 2 sources of truth. There was Google Analytics, and there was the ClickDimensions Web Analytics, and there was someone that every week needed to export both data on Microsoft Excel and try to reconcile it. Through the integration, this is pretty much done automatically. So there should not be any type of major variation between the data that you get from Google Analytics and through ClickDimensions. Now, this is something that I've personally had a lot of experience with. So if you are in a situation where you have a ton of contacts, in this example, it was an organization that had more than 50,000 contacts, except they did not know where to start in terms of their data cleansing effort. So what we did, and by the way, this is when the GDPR regulations went in effect, and when a lot of Canadian organizations were like, wait, are we actually supposed to care about this whole GDPR? And then they found out that yes. So they did basically what's called a re-permission marketing campaign, and said, hey, because of this new law in Europe, you guys are having a lot of emails in terms of make sure that all of your subscription are, up to date. And because we want to send you relevant content and stuff that you actually care about and stuff that you're actually interested in, please click here to our new subscription page where you will be able to update what type of emails that you want to receive. And what happened is we expected that a lot of these emails would so-called bounce back. Now, if you do not know what a bounce back is, it means a few different things. Number one, what a hard bounce is simply put, let's say that I send you an email and that your email address is currently out of service and it does not exist anymore. Then basically that email would bounce back and say, email address is invalid, it does not exist. Please contact your Exchange administrator or whatever. A soft bounce can be caused by a few different reasons. Let's say that, for example, you were to do a huge marketing campaign right now. A lot of people are on vacation or are going soon on vacation. So you would be having a lot of bounces caused by out-of-office automated replies. So for example, you would have a message saying, hi, I am currently on vacation until, let's say, August 15. I will get back to you once I'm back into the office. That's one reason for soft bounce. There are a few other reasons as well. So the rule in ClickDimensions is that they block your email address after one hard bounce and after 3 soft bounces. And we use those bounces in order to get relevant contact information. So for example, if we knew that somebody had left the organizations that they were working with, we tried to find, okay, where is that person working now? That was the first benefit to look at. The second thing is, let's say that we do not, let's say that we would rather know, rather than where that person is working now, but that what we want to know is who replaced that individual and is currently performing that function. Then if you have other contacts within that particular organization, you can ask, hey, I noticed that person so-and-so has left the company. I want to know who replaced them in their function. And then you would be able to get that piece of information. As you might be aware, I have a policy that I try to keep my presentation under 30 minutes or at the 30 minutes mark because I leave plenty of time for questions, and I know I will get a few if they did not already come. So you have 30 minutes to pretty much ask me anything you want.
Hi there. Thanks again for that, Vicky. Yes, so obviously that was a lot to take in. Now, some people are sharing YouTube links for some reason. Is that just to watch the live link? Okay, so Davey's asking for the recording link on YouTube. Okay, fine. So does anybody have any questions? You've got half an hour to learn everything you want to learn about Dynamics marketing, or so now's a really good time. So we had a session in the morning, and now Vicky's obviously complemented it further with a gap analysis. So does anybody have any questions about Dynamics marketing? Oh, here we go. Dominique is saying, what would you recommend for SMS with D365 marketing?
Hi, Dominique. So I'm going to answer Dominique's question first because I saw another one. SMS for Dynamics 365 for marketing. So this is not a requirement that I've personally encountered because most of the requirements that I've dealt with was with emails and in terms of social media and that type of stuff. Simply put, the clients that I've worked with have never asked me for SMS. So I know that there are integrations that are possible in terms of SMS for ClickDimensions, including Twilio. So I would tell you, if you are looking for SMS, the first thing I would do is look on App Stores and see if there is a third-party app that would be able to meet that particular requirement. I would be happy to do some research for you, and then I would get back to you on that. Sorry.
That's correct. Yep. So that's correct. There is on AppSource, there is a marketing extension that you can install that supports Dynamics marketing. The only problem with that solution is if it forces you to use a certain provider for sending out your SMS messages. If you want to be able to be more flexible and choose your provider, then that's where you'd probably have to develop something yourself. You could use flows, or you could develop. I mean, I personally, because I work in public sector, we have to use public sector providers for our SMSs, and so we developed something to execute the SMS messages. The really cool thing is obviously because it's all built within inside of Dynamics. The customer journey, you can easily add workflows into there to execute. But if you want to be able to see the insights of the SMS message directly inside of Dynamics marketing, that becomes a bit tricky. You have to do a bit more development if you're not going to use the SMS provider that's provided in AppSource for Dynamics marketing. So just be wary of that. That if you're not flexible on the SMS requirements, then you may have to do some development. Otherwise, there is the solution in AppSource available for that. So Dominique, does that answer your question? Let's see if that answers Dominique's question. Dominique is fantastic. Yeah, Dominique's happy with that one. There is another question, a very lengthy question, it looks like, by Kokulan, who's asking, we had a really bad experience with ClickDimensions once. One of our Dynamics 365 consultants imported the latest version of the CDS solution, of the ClickDimensions solution a year ago, and somehow almost all the ClickDimensions entities lost their display names, and also some attributes and relationships got deleted. We could not use the CRM after that, and we ended up doing some SQL changes and got it working, but we could not upgrade the instance to V9. Even the fast track team could not find a solution, and finally we had to just export the solution and migrate data using custom migration scripts. Not sure if anyone else has had a similar experience. Kokulan, may I ask, are you using on-premise or online? I'm just curious.
Yeah, because one thing I can tell you is that I am honestly surprised that somebody had such an experience because ClickDimensions has a reputation of being extremely stable, and I've seen quite a few instances of folks using ClickDimensions. So one of the experiences I had with it was not caused by ClickDimensions, but rather somebody had unsupported customizations in their Dynamics instance, which led to basically them being unable to upgrade. So I would say you should first of all look into whether your customizations are supported or not. And again, if you have on-premise, then I would highly encourage you to migrate to the cloud as soon as possible, because God knows how long support for on-prem is going to be there. So
it's really good that we're getting sides of the pictures of both sides of the story. So some people have good experiences, some people have bad experiences. So that's very interesting. And so going further to the next one is Diliana is saying InfoBip. Definitely not Telesign. Diliana's saying, yeah. So basically, Diliana's recommending some SMS solutions as well. David is saying an example of feature that ClickDimensions provide that we don't have in marketing. So there you go, Vicky. So Dave is asking you a question there. Could you provide an example of a feature you get inside of ClickDimensions that you don't get inside of marketing?
There's actually like a few features that I would say would not be possible. Number one is the bounce back report, which is not available in Dynamics 365 for marketing. So if you are someone that is having a lot of data cleansing to do and that you don't know where to start, this might be a deal breaker. The other deal breaker for a few people is that if you offer a best of breed approach in terms of your IT experience, and for example, ClickDimensions has out-of-the-box integration with Cvent, Eventbrite, as well as GoToWebinar, I believe, as well as WebEx. So if you have a marketing team which is dead set on using any of those tools, then ClickDimensions might be a better option for you as well. The other reason I would say is, so far, again, this might change in a few months, the social media capabilities in ClickDimensions is more feature-rich compared to Dynamics 365 marketing. So here in the ClickDimensions solution, you're having a lot of functionality in terms of your social media management in terms of posts, which is not currently available in Dynamics 365 marketing. So those are a few features that are available in ClickDimensions, but not in Dynamics 365 marketing.
And followed up to that, Frank Peters is asking, what kind of additional social media channels are possible with ClickDimensions?
Out of the box, that would be Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. The moment you are looking at, let's say, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, or Pinterest, you would need to have somebody have built you basically a custom solution at that point.
And then Dominique is saying hard competition for both solutions is HubSpot, that marketing people find easier sometimes.
Yes, but there's such a huge caveat with HubSpot is if your CRM is Dynamics 365 Sales, then you gain maybe some familiarity because a lot of marketing people like HubSpot, but I can tell you from personal experience, the integration with Dynamics 365 is a complete mess. And unless you have somebody who's an in-house developer to manage that, and that you're willing to let go some of the benefits of having an integrated marketing and sales solution, then I'm just telling you what the downside of having HubSpot. And on top of that, if you look at ClickDimensions and D365 marketing, there are not that many features that are additional in HubSpot. So I would say it's not that it's easier to find, it's just that they are more familiar with it and they are more, I would say, set in their ways, and they would rather keep HubSpot.
So there you go. The world of marketing is huge. It's humongous. There are a lot of tools out there. There's native tools that Microsoft have provided. There's ISV tools. There's third-party tools. And my personal advice would be, it's all about the setup of your organization and your team, because it may be that at the end of the day, is it your marketing team? Is it your creative staff that are going to be responsible for creating these campaigns and executing them? Often that is the case, that it is these people who are not tech savvy. They're just used to writing, being very creative, and they get very scared of tech. So my biggest advice is definitely look for a solution that facilitates and empowers your marketing team to go and be able to be creative and go ahead and execute their campaigns whilst remaining GDPR compliant and not make mistakes. That should be the foremost center before choosing a marketing solution, 100%. And then again, it also depends on the other nuances. People have mentioned about social media. How important is that as part of your marketing campaign? What types of metrics? And also how you're using it. Will you be doing it via a DevOps pipeline where you're developing in a dev environment or having to deploy, or will it all be in production? So all these things matter. So That's my personal advice, just from having deployed marketing solutions at various ones for different organizations. That was the feedback that we got. Fundamentally, it came down to the users that had to use the system. Often it's not the Microsoft consultant or the partner that is responsible, for running the campaigns. It is the marketing staff, and they're the ones that have to use it.
Yeah.
And so that would be the most important thing is, okay, how can we empower the marketing staff to be able to be creative and execute their campaigns regularly without causing any disruption? And because at the end of the day, they very rarely would probably actually go into Dynamics. So if they do, it would be to query some data, advanced fine. So it's an interesting scenario, and it all depends on your organization setup, how large your organization is. Ideally, the perfect world, everything is done within inside of Dynamics. That's definitely the way to go. But even if you look at the marketing solution for Dynamics, they've extrapolated the data out of Dynamics so that the marketing insights is held outside in Azure. So whereas ClickDimensions keeps it within. So again, there's always two sides to the coin. And for those people who are looking for a marketing solution, personally, from my experience, and obviously I'm sure yourself, Vicky, you probably agree with this, it is fundamentally down to the users who are responsible for executing the campaigns. I mean, what are your thoughts, Vicky?
Yeah. So personally, am I mute? 1 second. Okay, I'm not mute. So personally, there are two things that I want people to kind of consider. Number one, of course, is who is going to use it. But also, when you think about the way that marketing justifies their role and their budgets and everything, it's how they are able to make that connection between this marketing campaign generated X amount of dollars or euros or pounds of sales. And the main drawback between having the marketing solution separate outside of the Dynamics ecosystem, whether that it's HubSpot or something else, is that it's much harder for the marketing team to kind of say, okay, X amount of campaign spend had a return on an investment of Y% or something like that. So I would say that number one criteria should be the users and what they like to use. And then your kind of second one is how can I get visibility in terms of the results of my marketing campaign.
Excellent. So again, what Vicky was alluding to there is that the feedback from the campaigns is often missed. People are spending all their time doing campaigns, very expensive campaigns, but then what is the measured value and output from these campaigns? How are we measuring it? That's vital. Very good. Thank you, Vicky, for mentioning that, because often, you can end up spamming people with all these marketing campaigns. And so that's very important to provide that insight and be able to report on it and generate the output of those campaigns regularly. And again, that's vital. So how do you achieve that? And again, it's all down to getting the right level of reporting in the hands of the decision makers, so they can clearly see the impact. So what types of metrics are we looking at? It's not just email bounce backs, is it? It's not just email deliveries. It's things like, also we're looking at things like Google click rates as well. Is another one. Any others that you could recommend, Vicky?
In terms of metrics, so a lot of the things, especially if you're an e-commerce organization, you live or die by your conversion rate. So if you don't know what that is basically how many people that started on your website end up purchasing a product. So that is very specific for e-commerce or products purchased online. The other thing I would say is another metric, again, depending on your type of organization, is how many people, what is the churn rate of your email newsletter, which is how many people subscribe versus how many people unsubscribe. So if you're somebody that you kind of have a very content-based organization or you're doing a lot of content marketing, this is a very important metric. Another thing is, let's say that you're having a blog on your, so for example, let's say you're a Microsoft partner and you're doing a blog post on whether ClickDimensions is better or whether Dynamics 365 is better, and this kind of topic that we covered. A good metric for that is how many people actually contact you with that question in the 6 months to a year afterwards. Another topic would be how many people subscribe to your, let's say, Dynamics 365 marketing and the ClickDimensions newsletter that you offer after reading this particular article. So I would say there are a lot of great metrics out there. It really depends on who you are as an organization and what your goals are.
Excellent. So there you go, direct from Vicky. So that's some really, really important advice for your marketing decision makers there as part of your marketing strategy. So so we have 10 minutes till the next session. Again, so the event where this is the last session. Oh, sorry, Coquelin's got one more question. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We have one. So Coquelin is asking, sorry, this is a bit generic question. Do you think Microsoft will stop adding new features to Dynamics 365 on-prem and then eventually announce the deprecation? The online product has changed a lot in the past few years, most tightly bound to cloud services. CDS stores now stores data in 3 different locations: SQL DB, Cosmos Log, and Azure Blob files.
The answer to your question is, I believe so, yes. Actually, the what happened, just to give you a little bit of background again, which might be a little Canadian specific, is the reason why on-premise solution is still supported, at least in Canada, is that many of the Canadian government ministries are still operating with CRM on-premise. And what happens is, in Ottawa specifically, if anybody is looking for a job and you are Canadian and you are willing to relocate to Ottawa, there are so many contracts out there, I am not joking, in terms of migrating those government clients to the cloud. And what happens is that as long as those government clients are still operating on-prem, Microsoft will still support it somewhat for critical issues. And if you are, I would say, a private sector customer, I would say probably, if again, this is pure speculation, but if I had to guess, within 5 years, if you are a private sector organization still on the cloud, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you to look at migrating to the cloud, because we do not know how long it's going to be there for. Right now, the only organizations that are actively using on-prem, and why Microsoft is not pulling the plug right now, is because a lot of public sector folks are still using it. So if you're Canadian, you are looking for a role, Ottawa has a lot of opportunity right now, and I've seen a lot of other questions. Frank asked, is it possible to use Dynamics 365 marketing and ClickDimensions? Technically, yes, but you're using a lot of the benefits of having a integrated solution. So for example, that would be, okay, so email with ClickDimensions I get for the bounce backs, and then Dynamics 365 for marketing. So if for you the email bounce back is really important, but that you cannot use, okay, I saw the specification. So what Frank wants is ClickDimensions for email and social, and then Dynamics 365 for marketing for LinkedIn, event management, channels, and development. Yes, technically, but that is not something that I would recommend because because you're losing a lot of the benefits of having a one solution and that whole data visibility that we were talking about earlier. So yes, but I wouldn't do it.
Yes, so that's correct, Vicky. And Diliana also confirms that, yes, you can technically install both, but is that a wise thing to do? And how much technical debt are you going to inherit by doing that? Is the question to really ask yourself. If you want to try and benefit from both, then you may have to apply your own configurations on top to ensure there is no overlap and breaking of certain other features. So just one thing to consider before you go ahead and do that, although it is technically feasible to actually do that, because it's just entities and solutions, and they both use their own different clouds to execute the marketing automations.
And Davey asked, what is the cost implication using both in one system? First of all, you have 2 licensing fee, which is, again, if you're Canadian, that's minimum 50,000 Canadian a year, which is a lot of money. Number 2 is you are losing a lot of the visibility in terms of your marketing spend, return on investment. And the other piece is, let's say that one day Dynamics 365 marketing catches up and releases a lot of the features that are currently only in ClickDimensions. Now Dynamics 365 marketing makes that available. Then what do? How do you migrate everything from ClickDimensions over to Dynamics 365 for marketing? It kind of becomes a re-implementation project at this point. So that's one other thing to keep in mind.
Excellent. So are there any other questions then for marketing? Let's see. There you go. Frank Peters saying, yeah, that is good advice. Just wanted to know if both can use for different channels. For better to say, actually, we have ClickD and are happy. Marketing can be used for communities outside ClickD, social media channels, etc. Okay, yeah. So that's obviously trying to basically, I think what Frank is alluding to is trying to get the best of both worlds. But yep, great stuff from Vicky and from Diliana. And then besides, Frank continues, besides Dynamics marketing, social channels are yet a bit poor. Yes, there's still a new product, I guess. Dynamics marketing is a new product.
Yeah, so it only launched like two years ago. So I would say if you give Dynamics 365 marketing another 2 years, God knows where it's going to be. I think that it's only a matter of time for when Dynamics 365 marketing is going to outpace ClickDimensions in terms of features. But if I had to guess in terms of timeline, I would say give it another 2 or 3 years, maybe, and then we can revisit this whole discussion even.
And there was a lot of questions around cloud. And I think, again, it's important to mention for the people that are discussing on-premise and cloud that marketing automations have a heavy dependency on cloud. You can't get the analytics without the cloud. So, you know, I know some organizations, you know, have a requirement to be on-premise due to data. Their data laws and their security reasons, they have to stay on premise. And I think Microsoft has positioned itself to be the one of the only CRM providers that provide dual capabilities to be able to deliver both cloud and on-premise capabilities. And that flexibility is a big attraction to customers, that they're not restricted to using Microsoft's cloud. They can also host themselves. Is a key area for obviously getting the more edge case customers. And so, but yes, you know, Microsoft has become a cloud first organization. So all the products now are being developed cloud first. Though you can expect on-premise to really be missing out on a lot of or most of the features, especially anything related to the Power Platform. You know, so again, you know, they've provided gateways so that you can start using your on-prem with Power Platform using on-premise gateways. But again, it's highly limited. and you're missing out on the benefits of the cloud when it comes to CAPEX costs and return on investments from that perspective. But Kokulin's mentioned the key two waves, feature waves of Dynamics marketing, and then they've included the Microsoft Teams integration with virtual events, which is going to be huge.
Yeah, indeed, very, very huge. And they are, again, as I mentioned, they are improving social posting as well as social media analytics. But to be honest, I will not believe until I see and test it myself. So let's see when that comes out, I think around October, November. And they are also improving the customer journey designer, as well as now you're going to be able to use natural language to create segments. So that's a lot of great things to really look forward to. But again, for the social media analytics, I will not believe until I see and test it myself.